Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, it is great to meet you. I go by B, and if you are a returning viewer, then thank you very much for that. It is great to see you back again. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, if you clicked on this video, I'm guessing that it's because you are interested in Natasha Preston's murder mysteries. Maybe you've heard of her. Maybe you've never heard of her, maybe you've read her books, or maybe you haven't. Maybe you're just curious and bored and wanted to watch something and this popped up on your page, but however you found this video, I'm very glad you're here, and I wanted to talk about Natasha Preston and her murder mystery books. So, in case you're unaware, Natasha Preston is an author who writes, I can't say it's entirely murder mysteries because they don't all have murder in them, but just scary books, mysteries, generally they're just kind of murder mysteries. At least that's what I'm going to call them for simplicity's sake today. So, a lot of the times in a murder mystery, the general, series of events is somebody gets murdered, the main character must try to work to figure out who did it. There's a lot of different setups for murder mysteries. If you're interested, go check out a channel, or if you let me know in the comments, I might at some point make a video talking about murder mysteries, because I do love murder mysteries and I'd be happy to do that. If you'd be interested in something like that, please let me know in the comments. But, but the general thing of it is, murder mysteries often have a happy ending. Books in general, movies, whatever, almost always have happy endings. It's what people like, it's what they expect, so it keeps them reading or watching or, anything like that. So, a lot of the times it's very controversial when something doesn't have a happy ending, or when it doesn't go the way people expect. And sometimes that can cause people to dislike that thing, which is kind of the case with Natasha Preston. She writes things that often don't end happily. They usually, some of her books have happy endings, but most of them have not happy endings. In fact, a lot of them kind of leave on a cliffhanger, and that makes a lot of people unhappy. But do they really end on a cliffhanger? That's what I'm aiming to discuss today. So, my goal is for this to be a bit of a shorter video, but in case it isn't, go and grab nice warm beverage, it's kind of cold out, and grab some snacks, cuddle up with blankets, because we are going to discuss Natasha Preston and if her books actually end on cliffhangers. So I've read 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8 at the point of filming this video. I have read 8 of her murder mystery books. She has written Okay, so she has a book coming out December 2nd. I'm filming this November 28th, but I will probably be releasing this after November 2nd, or December 2nd. So, as of this point, when this is released, she has 12 murder mystery books out. I think she's written a couple other things that aren't murder mystery, but, she's got the 12 murder mystery books. I've read 8 of them. I own 10 of them. There's one that I don't have right now, and then there's one that'll be coming out, I believe it's December 2nd, that I don't have yet either, and probably won't have for a while. But, of the ones I've read, it's interesting because you can see her writing style develop over the course of the books. So the first one I got of hers, was this. It was The Twin in the Lake, the double book set. I'd never heard of Natasha Preston, but I found this at a bookstore, and it sounded interesting, so I decided to give it a try. The first one I read was The Lake, which is the second one. The description on the back reads, "In the lake, when Esme returns to Camp Pine Lake as a counselor in training, years after helping to cover up a tragic accident that occurred there, she gets a disturbing note. The lake never forgets. Now the secret she's kept buried for so many years is about to resurface." So, very suspenseful, very scary, and, there's murder. I read it and, it wasn't anything remarkable. I liked it. It didn't really blow me away. I was reading and reading and I was thinking, okay, this is good. I'll read other books by this author maybe, but it's not anything phenomenal. At this point, I'd read several murder mysteries, even just recently, and, didn't really stand out as being any different. And then I got to the ending. And the ending was different. Now, I am about to spoil some things here, so if you don't want that, then skip, let's just say, 30 seconds? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple seconds here while I'm talking. Skip about the next 30 seconds, and then we'll pick up spoiler-free. Okay, so we have to rapid fire this. So, basically, at the ending, the main character... So, in the book, the main character, Esme, is trying to figure out who is doing this and, causing all these scary things to happen at the camp. And several people end up murdered. And then at the end of the book, she ends up... And she's in the woods holding... I think she's holding the gun that was used to kill the people, and she's surrounded by dead bodies, and the killer escapes into the woods, and it just ends with police at her. Okay. Yeah. So that's what happens. And a lot of people say that that is a cliffhanger, which technically it is a cliffhanger. There's nothing that happens after that. That's just where the book ends. But is it really a cliffhanger? Because if she were to just write a bad ending where, it doesn't end happily, I think a lot of people would be unhappy with that. But the way she does it, it's almost like she's giving you the chance to decide what you want the ending to be. You can either leave it in limbo, or you can imagine a happy ending, because surely that could happen. Or you could imagine a tragic ending, because that's kind of just what it suggests. It suggests tragedy, because in real life, things aren't always happy. Tragedy happens. People are framed for things. And I think that is just such a cool and unique move, and it really sets her writing apart. And so, I read those last couple pages, and I was fascinated. I was like, I have to read more. I have to know if this is just a fluke or if all of her books go this way. So next, I read, I can't remember exactly what I read next, for certain, but I believe that it was The Island. Now, I picked this up at Barnes & Noble's, which was way more expensive than the small bookstore where I get most of her books. At that small bookstore, I can get them for about $5.50 a piece, which is pretty nice. Now, at Barnes & Noble's, it was $13, but it was worth it because I'd heard of The Island and I really wanted to read it. It's like this blogger, she gets invited to promote this, spend a weekend at this, murder island. It's like a theme park, kind of, and just promote it with a group of other kids, and then people start dying, and they have to figure out who it is, classic murder mystery on an island setup, and then there were none vibes by Agatha Christie. I liked it, it was good, and again, it has that same sort of ending where it's things could happen next that shift it to a happy ending, or that could just be it. You could just follow it to its logical conclusion of what probably happened and just, go, it probably ended tragically. And again, I loved that. I thought that was fascinating. So then I had to find another one of hers. I believe the next one I read was The Cabin. Now, The Cabin is one of her earlier books, and you can tell the writing's not quite as strong as some of her more recent ones. It was, a group of friends stay at a cabin for the night. In the morning, they wake up and two of them are dead. They have to figure out who it was, yada yada. Again, classic murder mystery setup. And again, it ends with that whole, it could be a happy ending if more things happen to get it to that point, or it could be a tragic ending, but you're left in suspense at the end of the book. And many people have complained about the fact that she does this. Many people say that it's disappointing and that they wish that she would write another book explaining what happens because it needs a sequel. Now, if you think that, I'm not judging. I can completely see where you're coming from. It is ending just very abruptly in the middle of something. but it always ends on something that it has a logical conclusion. You can kind of predict where you're going to get from point A. You can figure out what point B is going to be because it's the logical conclusion of what would happen in the real world. But she doesn't just tell you it ends tragically, the end. She tells you, this is where we're at, go imagine whatever ending you'd like, which I think is very cool. Because then, if you have readers who like happy endings and don't like tragic endings, then they can imagine up their own happy ending. But if you have people like me who don't really mind and think it's actually a pretty cool move, then I can just be like, okay, we pretty much know what happens. It ends tragically. The end. So then, though, I read The Lost, and it's not a murder story. I'm not going to go into detail, but the main character is kidnapped, basically, with her best friend, and they're held hostage, not hostage, but, like, they've been kidnapped and stashed away with a couple of other teenagers, and they get tortured periodically. It's a very dark read, very creepy, one of her creepier, darker ones, but I thought it was fascinating. And again, it ends tragically, no, it ends on a cliffhanger, and it ends, you can assume it's going to have a tragic ending. But if you want, you can imagine up a happy ending. She doesn't tell you what to think. She doesn't tell you how it ends. She gives you the facts and the events and, here's where we've gotten to, and then she lets you just kind of imagine the rest of it for yourself if you want. Then I read Awake. I think this was, if not her first book, one of her first books. I didn't love it. It was clear that it was written by, someone who's newer to writing. It was okay. I didn't love it. But it had a happy ending. Which, again, I think it was one of her first books. So they did start out ending happily. But it wasn't her style. Her style, the way she ends her books kind of sets her apart in a really, really cool way. And I think some people may not like it, but for me, I think it's really cool. So then I read The Cellar, which is one of her more well-known books, and it also ends happily. Well, it ends on a positive note. There is some tragedy in the ending, but it's more or less positive. Nothing bad has happened to the main character, but it's, again, not a murder mystery. The main character's kidnapped and held not hostage. I don't know why I keep trying to say held hostage, but basically she and 3 other women are kept in the cellar of, this crazy guy. And again, it's an interesting read. And then I read The Fear, which is one of her most well-known books as well, and it is a murder mystery. I wasn't as impressed by it as her other ones. I thought it would be more interesting. And again, it ends tragically on a cliffhanger. Yeah. The 2 I have not yet read that I do own are The Haunting, which I've heard is really good, and then The Dare, which I've also heard is amazing. So I can't wait for those. And I kind of hope that they have tragic endings, because it's her style, and it's cool, and the way it ends on a cliffhanger, it lets you decide if the ending is tragic or happy, because you can just follow it to its logical conclusion, and it's tragic. Or you can imagine up a happy ending, because that's not impossible to do either. Yeah. Now, the one I don't have is called You Will Be Mine, which I haven't heard anything about. It's one of her earlier ones too, so I'm not too excited for it. But the one that's coming out on December 2nd, just a couple days from now, is called The Party. Or no, The Party was already released. Oh, that's another one I don't have. Okay, so there's 2 I don't have. Well, 3 after. Yeah, because the new one that's coming out is called The Obsession. Sorry, The Party was the one that was released before The Obsession, I'm pretty sure. It was released last year around this time, I think. But, yeah, The Obsession is her newest one. Again, I'm excited for all of those. I love her books. And another cool thing that's her unique style is that they all have flowers on the cover. Every single one of them. This didn't take me long to notice. You can see the lake, there's flowers. The twin, there's flowers. Flower. Flower, there at the bottom. flower. That one's extra significant. Flowers. Flower. Flower. I know I sound crazy. Flower. A flower. And there's flowers on her other ones too, which I think is so cool. Again, this is part of her signature style. The, you know, cliffhanger endings, the flowers on the cover, the tragedy, the suspense, the mystery, it's all her signature style, and it really sets her apart from other murder mystery authors, and it makes her so unique, and I love it so much. She's so creative, and her books are so good. So, yeah, I really don't think, I mean, sure, they technically end on cliffhangers, but the cliffhangers they end on, they're basically, they allow you to imagine the ending you choose. And I think that's even more cool. So, you know, if you've never read a Natasha Preston book, pick one up and give it a try. I'd recommend The Island or The Twin. I didn't get a chance to mention that one, but it's amazing too. I think that's my favorite. Or The Lost, but that one's a bit darker. The Cellar. They're just all good. Some are better than others, but I haven't read one that I dislike. Yeah, go check out my book ratings. I've done book ratings for most of them if you want to see specifics. And yeah, I hope that clarified things. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you disagree with anything I said, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on things. It was great to be able to talk about this. I love Natasha Preston's books. She's so cool. I really hope to be able to meet her someday. Yeah. Have a great day, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye!